Okay, let's get started. Sairam and good morning all. Okay, so I hope all of you were able to read about the load balancers yesterday, ALB. Okay, so load balancer is an important topic. I hope all of you were able to get some insights into load balancers. Okay, so today what we're going to cover is we're going to cover the um, auto scaling, right? Auto scaling is a very, very important topic, right? So let's get started. I'm just going to pull up my screen. Just give me a second. Okay, so just a second. I'm just pulling up my screen. Scaling, correct? So now, see the power of cloud AWS cloud platform is its ability to scale, correct? I mean, when you have resources available at your disposal, right? And when cloud actually gives you a notion of infinite scalability, correct? So you can just scale, right? So you don't have to really worry about how will your resources perform and how will your application perform when suddenly there is a spike in your utilization patterns, right? So I'm just going to come and pull out the thing. Okay, so let me just take the same examples. Oops. EC2 Autoscaling. Okay, all right. So you have you have two web servers, okay, right now. Okay, so now when you put two web servers in front of a load balancer, so what happens is when requests come to your load balancer sends it to these two web servers. And what load balancer does is it basically splits the load between these two web servers, right? So that's what we saw. We learned about the algorithms, right? I mean, we learned about the algorithms of load balancing, such as round robin and things like that, right? So now, what really happens is for applications uh, that are very spiky, right, and that change quite frequently. The usage patterns of those applications change quite frequently, right? I mean, if you are 100% sure that only two web servers would suffice your requirement, and would two web servers would suffice your uh, need to support your business, your application, then you can just deploy two web servers, right? But many a times it doesn't work that way, right? Because for example, let's take e-commerce websites, right? Or let's take reservation websites, online reservation websites, right? And let's take social media websites, right? I mean, these websites, these applications cannot really predict what the load is going to be, correct? Because let's take e-commerce websites. Of course, e-commerce websites like Amazon.in, Amazon.com, they are able to basically get some sense of how the usage is going to look like, but that will not be always accurate, and that will never be 100%, right? So in such cases, what will happen if suddenly there is a offer? Okay, there's an offer that one of the marketplace sellers are actually rolling out, right? And suddenly the usage increases on the website because everybody is looking forward to buy that particular and place an order for that particular item. So in such cases, what really happens is, say, the morning around 9 o'clock, the CPU utilization of your web server was somewhere around 40%. Okay, and each web server was about 40%, and suddenly the CPU utilization of your web server spikes up to 90%. Okay, which is a alarming thing, right? I mean, you can't let your web server spike CPU utilization of the web servers or application servers spike up to 90%, which is an alarming thing, right? So in such cases, what really happens is uh, you're you're at the risk of crashing your web application, and you're at the risk of taking your website down or causing an outage for your application, for your business application, right? So in such cases, that's where auto scaling can be really really helpful, right? So where you set an auto scaling, right, and then you configure the auto scaling, and then you let the auto scaling decide at what point in time it has to add a third web server node. You have two web server nodes. What the auto scaling does is, if the CPU utilization of both the web server nodes probably reach about say 80%, what it does is it adds another web server node automatically. Okay, it adds another web server node automatically, and what it does is it basically does a load balancing. It adds it to the load balancer. It registers this target as a as a target in the load balancer, and it kind of load balances this, so that way the load on the rest of the web server 1 and 2 reduces, because the load balancer is also sending the request to web server 3, right? In such cases, what happens is there will be a normalization of the load across all the three web servers, right? So where it will not be 80%, probably it will be 40%, 50%, right? And you can set thresholds and you can set rules in the auto scaling, saying that if the CPU utilization, if CPU utilization is greater than say 70%, scale up. Okay, if CPU utilization, so after that, maybe this happens for about 2 hours. Okay, maybe 2 hours, one of the marketplace sellers has rolled out an offer, and maybe Sony has rolled out some offer, right? So everybody is going to buy that product from Sony from Amazon. Okay, so then after a couple of hours, that offer expires and people stop visiting the site, and the load becomes normal load. So then the CPU utilization of the cluster, I mean, drops down below 30% overall of the entire servers, drops down below 30%. So in such case, you don't need to keep running this, right? Because it's an additional cost, right? So the moment you keep running this, it's going to add additional load to your additional cost to your web application, and that's going to add more cost to your overall bill. So in that case, you can just go ahead and let the auto scaling group automatically terminate the instance and bring the size back to 2 web servers. It will just go ahead and terminate this. Okay, so where if the CPU utilization is less than 40%, scale. Okay, it's not scale up, it's called scale out, because you're scaling out and you're scaling in. Okay, so usually what happens is in the case of scale out, you have a, this is your web server, web server 1, web or app. Okay, when you add one more of the same size, right? I mean, let's assume this is a t2.micro. Okay, and when you add one more t2.micro of the same web server and add it to the cluster, so this is called a cluster, right? When you add it to the cluster, that is called scaling out. Okay, this is the cluster, that is called scaling out. You're scaling out your clusters, and when you delete this, that's called scaling in. Okay, whereas scale up and scale down are different. Scale up is like you have one server, right? You have a single server which is t2.micro. You're changing the t2.micro to c5.large. So, okay, t2.micro is one vCPU, probably 2 GB RAM, right? Or 1 GB RAM. Yeah, one vCPU and 1 GB RAM. Whereas c5.large is two vCPUs and 8 GB of RAM. Okay, so now you are increasing the same server's capacity. You are making the server bigger. Okay, you're making the server a little bigger. That is called scale up. And when you bring it back to t2.micro, that is called scale down, right? Scale out is, it's called horizontal scaling, right? You're horizontally scaling this. If you add one more here, you're horizontally scaling that, correct? This is called horizontal scaling. Okay, you need to know these terminologies because you'll be asked in interviews, and it's important that you learn what is cloud. What is the feature of cloud? Cloud provides you horizontal scaling, right? And cloud also provides you vertical scaling. So this is called vertical scaling. Yeah, so this is called vertical scaling. Okay, where you are in the same server, you're adding more CPUs and memory. That's called vertical scaling. Whereas in a cluster, you're adding more instances. That's called horizontal scaling. Okay, so now what autoscaling does is autoscaling does the horizontal scaling. Okay, so let's just go to the product page of autoscaling, right? And then let's just go through a bit of content and then let's go into the lab. Okay, Amazon EC2 Autoscaling helps you maintain application availability and allows you to automatically add or remove EC2 instances according to the conditions you define, right? You can use the fleet management features of EC2 Autoscaling to maintain the health and availability of your entire fleet, right? What is fleet? This is called a fleet, right? You have a fleet, correct? You have a fleet of cars, which means multiple cars are there as part of a travel agency, right? So that's called a fleet. So here also, if you see, there are so many servers that are part of the fleet, that are part of my stack. You can also use dynamic and predictive scaling features of EC2 Autoscaling to add or remove EC2 instances. Dynamic scaling responds to changing demand, and predictive scaling schedules the right number of EC2 instances based on predicted demand, right? So now the example that I gave you earlier, this one, this is basically a dynamic scaling. It's an example of dynamic scaling. Here in this case, your dynamic scaling is your scaling based on a certain set rules. Okay, whereas in the case of predictive scaling, right, you're actually predicting, you're predicting based on certain patterns that you have seen, that usually in the morning 9 a.m. my load increases and stays till 12 p.m. Okay, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. load is normal. So this is like peak load. This is peak load. This is normal load. Okay, and 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. minimal load, right? So if you see, this is the pattern that you're seeing on your website, correct? In such cases, what really happens is when you enable predictive scaling, the EC2 autoscaling algorithm automatically predicts this pattern. And then what it does is it keeps the size of your cluster to support the peak load, and like 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. it basically brings it down to normal, and 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. it further reduces it down. And before 9 a.m. what it does is it starts all the servers, it provisions new servers and keeps your size of the cluster at a sizable number so that it can support the peak load. So right, that's what the predictive demand, right, based on the predicted demand, right? It's like this, no? If you go to restaurants, right, what in the restaurants, they predict the demand, correct? Like probably evening 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock is like a peak demand, correct? So if you go to chutneys, right, so what they do is they keep you wait, they make you wait, right? Because evening 6 to 9 p.m. is like a peak load. So many people visit the restaurant to have dinner, right? So they make you wait outside, right? But at the same time, what they also do is they add more people during that 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. time. So the staff, the waiters, right, and the chefs who are there in the restaurant are there in the maximum number. But after that, what happens is in the afternoons, probably it's in the mornings, probably it's not that high. So they reduce the number of people there. Right? So it's the same thing in terms of providing a auto scaling. Okay, so it can automatically scale in and out, right? Scale in, scale out is this. Horizontal scaling is scale in, scale out. Vertical scaling is scale up or scale down. That is vertical scaling. Okay, and launch new EC2 instances seamlessly and automatically when demand increases, and terminate unneeded EC2 instances automatically and save money when demand subsides. Okay, choose when and how to scale. Scale dynamically based on your Amazon CloudWatch metrics or predictably according to the schedule that you define. Receive notifications via SNS. All of us have done SNS to be alerted when you use Amazon CloudWatch alarms to initiate EC2 autoscaling actions, or when EC2 autoscaling action completes an action. Okay. Yeah, and you can also combine autoscaling with load balancers. And when autoscaling group, there's a feature called autoscaling group. When the autoscaling group automatically autoscales, it also adds the server to the load balancer automatically. Okay, so we are going to see that in a while. Okay, how about pricing? Auto scaling is free. I mean, there is no price for the auto scaling feature. Okay, but what happens is for the EC2 instances, CloudWatch, and other AWS resources that you use, there is going to be a price. Okay, so that's the thing. So you really don't have to pay anything for auto scaling, but for other additional things, you have to pay the price for the actual resources. Okay, so what we are going to do is let's go to the console and let's start creating and walking through the auto scaling groups, right? And there's something called a launch template where you can create a launch template using your own AMI. Now, all of us know what an AMI is, right? An AMI is Amazon Machine Image, right? And the other day we created an AMI with our web server in it. We are going to reuse the same AMI. Okay, excuse me, and then create a template which can be used for launching machines. After that, we are going to create an auto scaling group. After that, we are going to add a load balancer, right, and configure the auto scaling policies. Okay, we're going to do that. So let's do that. Okay, there are a bunch of tutorials available. I'm going to give you these tutorials, but today what we are going to do is we are going to do this tutorial, set up a scaled and load balanced application. Okay, register your auto scaling group with an elastic load balancer helps you to set up a load balanced application. So in this case, what happens is we are going to use a load balancer and we are going to use auto scaling, right? And it will be part of the auto scaling group. Let me put one more box here. Okay, this box that you see is basically the auto scaling group. I'm just going to give it a slightly different color. Okay, let me just give this color, this purple color. Okay. So this is basically the auto scaling group. So we're going to create this auto scaling group and have the auto scaling add or more EC2 instances to the auto scaling group from our standard AMI. Okay, that's what we're going to do. And use elastic load balancer to uh, basically manage the traffic and distribute the load between all the web servers that are there. Okay, yeah, distribute the traffic across your healthy EC2 instances. This increases the scalability and availability of application. You can enable elastic load balancing within multiple availability zones to increase the fault tolerance of your applications. Okay, in this tutorial, we cover the basic steps for setting up a load balanced application when the auto scaling group is created. To register an existing auto scaling group with a load balancer, see attaching a load balancer instead. It's okay. We're going to do this end to end. Okay, then elastic load balancing supports different types of load balancer, including application load balancer, network load balancer, and classic load balancers. In most cases, we recommend that you use an application load balancer or a network load balancer. However, you can still use a classic load balancer. I mean, as I said, classic load balancer is an end of its life, so you can refrain from using that. Okay, so let's go back to the console. Go to EC2. Okay, here, if you go down to the bottommost, you will see auto scaling here, and you will see two configurations. One is called launch configuration, right? And the other one is called auto scaling groups. See, if you see here in the auto scaling group, there are key concepts that you need to understand. So one is, this is the auto scaling group, and within the auto scaling group, you can set the size of the cluster. So it's called a cluster, correct? I mean, this whole thing is called a cluster, right? Again, cluster is, what is cluster? Cluster is like a cluster of multiple objects, correct? So here, group of multiple objects is called a cluster. So here, this is called a cluster, and you have two web servers in the cluster, and you can add a third web server as needed, correct? So now if you see, you have uh, uh, you can have a desired capacity for your cluster, which is like 2 EC2 instances. Okay, you can have, that is the desired capacity, right? But you can also have a minimum size, right? You can say that bare minimum, always, one server should be running always in my cluster, or two servers should be always running in my cluster, or the desired capacity is two servers. And the maximum sizes, it can be as much as, right? You can say that maximum, I can go up to 10 servers, 10 web servers, or 20 web servers, or 30 web servers. That you can decide that. That's the maximum capacity that you have. So what happens is it stays within this boundaries of 2 web servers and 30 web servers based on the load. At the moment the load shoots up, it will keep adding, it will keep adding servers to the cluster as per till the time it reaches the condition, till the time it makes the condition true. where the condition is the CPU utilization has to be less than 50%. Till the time it reaches the CPU utilization less than 50%, it keeps adding servers to the cluster. The moment it reaches like less than 50%, it stops adding servers to the cluster, which means that all the servers are healthy and there is no threat to the application from a performance or scalability standpoint. After that, at some point, when your utilization goes down, it drops below, say, for example, 20%, right? It has to basically keep the utilization at around 40%, correct? So what it does is it keeps reducing the nodes from the cluster so that the nodes in the cluster, the EC2 instances in the cluster are at about 40%. Okay, so that's how it works. That's the minimum size, desired capacity, and maximum size. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just go create an autoscaling group. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new autoscaling group, and before creating autoscaling group, I'm going to create a launch configuration. Okay, let me just go create a new launch configuration. What is a launch configuration? Yeah, so if you go here, launch configurations is an instance configuration template that an autoscaling group uses to launch EC2 instances. When you create a launch configuration, you specify information for the instances, include the ID of the AMI that you want to use, a key pair, or one or more security groups, and a block device mapping. Right? If you have launched a EC2 instance before, you specified the same information in order to launch the instance. Right? So you're basically creating a template. That's what precisely a launch configuration means. Okay, you're creating a template and you're using the template to add more such instances for your EC2 instance for your autoscaling group to work fine. Okay, that is what is a launch configuration. So let's create a launch configuration. I'll say that my web server launch config. That's the name that I'm giving. And what is the AMI that I want to use? I want to use my web server AMI, right? If you remember, we created an AMI in the last week session, which has, in fact, yesterday also I provisioned a couple of servers through that AMI, correct? Yeah, so if you see yesterday also I provisioned a few servers using that AMI. Yeah, web server 1 and web server 2, they're still running. I'm just going to do a cleanup. Okay, let me also delete the load balancer that I created yesterday. Okay, I'll come back to the network load balancer part, whatever is pending. I'll come back to that in a while. Okay, so then what you do is, if you see, that is the AMI that we created yesterday, correct? I mean, where, in fact, we created it last week itself, right? I mean, last Friday that we created. This has the Apache web server running, and it has the /var www html has got a index.html hello RPL champs, right? So that's the web page that it is serving, correct? That's the AMI that it has, and it's called web server AMI. The name of that is web server AMI. So I have the web server AMI here. Yeah, this is the web server AMI, right? I'm going to choose that web server AMI. And what is the instance type that I want to choose? Is t2.micro. Select t2.micro, choose. Okay, forget about this, right? If you want to associate an instance profile, I'll come to that in a while. It's not needed for this lab. If you want to enable detailed monitoring within CloudWatch, you can do that, but that's going to add more cost. So you can just leave it like that. And there's something called EBS optimized instance, where it's for an application which needs high throughput on the EBS. You have to go for EBS optimized instances. That's the one. Then you can. These are some additional advanced details, such as which kernel ID you want to use, what is the RAM disk ID that you want to use. Do you want to have the metadata accessible for this? Yes or no? right? Or you want to add additional user data to that, right? User data is that user data script that we wrote, correct? So you can actually use this to run the script whenever the EC2 instance launches, right? I have no requirement right now. I'll just skip it. Okay. Yeah, and IP address type only assign a public IP address to instances launched in a subnet with auto assign public IP default, right? Or you can by default choose to assign a public IP to every instance, or do not assign a public IP address to any instance. I'm just going to leave it default. If the autoscaling group is going to launch it in public subnet, let it get public IP. If it is going to be in a private subnet, it will only have private IP. Okay. And this is the root volume that I have 8 GB. If you want, you can add more volumes to this, but you can just leave it. And I'm going to reuse my existing security group, which is my web server security group. This is the web server security group. I'm going to reuse that. And what is the key pair that you want to use? Choose an existing key pair. I'm going to use my RPL Mumbai Lab key pair. I acknowledge, right? This is the configuration. I've just given a name to it. I chose an AMI that I already have, right? AMI is something that we built last time, right? If you all remember, on Friday, we launched an EC2 instance. We installed Apache, and then we went to /var www.html. We created an index.html, and we gave hello RPL champs, right? And then we took we captured an image of it and took an AMI of it. Okay, so that's the AMI, and I'm selecting t2.micro. Advanced configuration, I'm not doing anything. I'm just leaving it by default. Then storage volumes, I'm just leaving it as it is. Security group, I've selected my web server security group, and after that key pair, I've given the key pair of our RPL Mumbai lab, right? So I'll just say, okay, create a launch configuration. Okay, so it has created a new launch configuration. I'm going to go to auto scaling groups. Click on create an auto scaling group. I'm just going to say my web server ASG. ASG means auto scaling group. Launch template that I want to use is okay. You can also create a launch template, something called launch template. Okay, a launch template is basically again similar to what you create for a launch configuration. You can create a launch template also, but yeah, let's first go ahead and use the launch configuration for now. Okay, so this is the launch configuration. Next, okay, which VPC that you want to create, right? I want to create it in my VPC. Which subnet? I want it to be in subnet 2. Okay, you can span multiple subnets also. If you have a third subnet, you can also create it in the third subnet. Subnet 3 also you can create it, not a problem. Right, so that way what happens is it will spread your EC2 instances across multiple subnets. That is also possible. You can add as many subnets as you want here. Next, if you want to enable load balancing, you can just click here, enable load balancing, or it will ask you which load balancer you want to use. Application load balancer or classic load balancer, right? You can say application load balancer, and you can say, okay, then you have to go and give your target groups. I'm going to delete this target group and come back fresh, clean it up and come back. Okay, there is no target group, so we'll just go ahead and create a new target group. I'll just create a target group saying my auto scaling target group, and it will be listening on port 80 HTTP my VPC HTTP, same thing, nothing changes. I'll just leave everything as it is. Just say next. I'm not going to register any instance. I'll just create a target group. That's it. Come back here, refresh this. You will see this my auto scaling target group. Okay, health checks is on. So EC2 autoscaling automatically replaces instances that fail health checks. If you enable load balancing, you can enable ELB health checks in addition to the EC2 that are always enabled. Okay. Also enable ELB health checks. I'll just enable that. Yeah, if you want, you can just enable group metrics within the CloudWatch. I'll just enable this. Next. Okay. So this is where you select how many instances that you want to have. Okay. Now my desired capacity is, I'll say that my desired capacity is say about 2. Okay. My desired capacity is going to be 2. Minimum capacity is 1. Maximum capacity is 4. So it'll always range between 1 and 4. But my desired capacity is 2. So it'll always start with 2. Okay. And then what it does is, based on the scaling policies, it hovers between the range of 4 and 1. Okay, we're going to see that shortly. Okay, and then what set of policies that you want to apply? Choose whether you want to use a scaling policy to dynamically resize your uh, scaling demands. So you can just so this is basically where you select this target tracking scaling policy, where you say that what is the policy that you want to achieve, right? I mean, what type of metric that you want to use, right? Whether you want to use CPU, or whether you want to use based on network, or you want to use a load balancer request count per target, right? For example, you want to say that my web servers can uh, receive probably 1,000 requests per second, right? The moment it crosses 1,000 requests per second, which means that I'm experiencing higher loads, you can use this application load balancer request count per target. Okay, average CPU utilization is, the target value is, I want to always keep my average CPU utilization at 50%. Okay, and the number of the instances need 300 seconds to warm up before including in metric, right? 300 seconds is 5 minutes, right? So now what really happens is, see, you need a warm up time, because what happens is it'll take a while for your EC2 instance to come up, right? A new EC2 instance to be provisioned. The EC2 instance has to finish its uh, health checks, 2 by 2 health checks, and then it has to get added to the auto scaling group, and in turn it has to get added to the load balancer, correct? So now in this case, what happens is, if you don't allow it to, if you don't allow time for your EC2 instances to get registered and get load balanced with the load balancer, then what you're doing is you're continuously you're scaling in and scaling out. Okay, which is not good, right? Because you're unnecessarily creating new EC2 instances and destroying EC2 instances, right? So in such cases, the warm-up time is, it needs at least 5 minutes to 300 seconds to warm up before including it in the metric. Okay, so that's the thing. So now scaling policies. We'll read more about scaling policies, right? So if you see, with target tracking, you select a metric type for your application, such as average CPU utilization or load balancer request count. Then you select the target value, and EC2 instance auto scaling, adjust the number of EC2 instances in your auto scaling group as needed to maintain that target. The target tracking scaling policy acts like a home thermostat, automatically adjusting the system to keep the environment at your desired temperature, right? If you have a AC, right? I mean, at home we have AC, and during summers we set the AC temperature to whatever, 24 degrees or 22 degrees, right? So now there is a thermostat inside it, so it will always maintain the room temperature at 24 degrees. Based on that, what it does is, the moment it is, say it's the room temperature right now is about, say, 32 degrees, and what air conditioner does is, it cools the room, and it makes the compressor work very hard, right? It supplies more power to the compressor, and then it keeps uh, running the air conditioner cooling on, which is the outdoor unit. It will keep it on all the time till it reaches 24 degrees, right? And the moment it reaches less than 24 degrees, say 23 degrees, what it does is, it shuts down the compressor. So you will see that, immediately the compressor going down. So then what happens over a period of time? Again, this temperature increases to 25 degrees. So then again, it starts the compressor. It brings the room temperature to about 24 degrees, and then it again stops the compressor. So it is scaling out and again scaling in, scaling out, scaling in, and all the time it maintains that entire temperature at 24 degree Celsius, right? So that's what happens here also, right? It's like adjusting the environment to the desired temperature. Okay, for example, you can configure a target tracking to keep CPU utilization for your fleet of web servers at 50%. Amazon EC2 instance autoscaling then launches or terminates EC2 instances as required to keep the average CPU utilization at 50%. While you can change the settings for instances, need estimated warm-up time and disable scale in most cases you can start with the defaults and change them later if needed. Okay, so we're just going to keep this like default right now, and then we'll change it, right? And you can also do a scale in protection, right? So now when you enable the scale in protection, um, so for example, when when you protect your instance scale in using this setting, right? uh, Newly launched EC2 instances will be protected from scaling by default, right? Like for example, when a newly launched instance has come up, right, and the configurations are done on that, and that's kind of being used, right? You're not disturbing that newly launched instances. That's what you're basically doing with the scale-in protection. We'll see this later, but we'll just come back. Click on next. You can add a notification. I'll just add a notification to my SNS topic. Okay, default CloudWatch alarms topic. Okay, let me just go and I'll see if my email is still active. Okay, I'm just going to use this temporary email out here. I'm not sure whether the topic is there. So let me just go first create a topic. I'll just say my auto scaling notifications. Just create this topic. So next I'll add a tag. Just say name my auto scaling. All your new instances will get tagged with this. I'll just say purpose. Oops. Auto scaling lab. What's the purpose? Okay. So this is basically the auto scaling group that I've created. Let's review the configurations once. Name my auto scaling group, launch configuration. I've used the launch configuration that I created earlier. Which network it has to go? It has to go into this VPC. It has to go into my private subnet. Load balancer. I've created a new target group in the load balancer, but there are no targets registered to that. It will automatically register the target to this load balancer. Okay, to this target group. You can use this target group to a load balancer. You can create that load balancer yourself. Load auto scaling group is not going to create that. Then health checks. You're using EC2 and ELB health checks. Grace period is 300 seconds, and additional monitoring is enabled. Your desired capacity is 2, minimum capacity is 1, maximum capacity is 4. Okay, and target tracking scaling is where you are evaluating CPU utilization at 50%. Okay, to maintain an average CPU utilization of 50%. Okay, average. And then we've created a notification. Okay, and let me just go and after, okay, there's nothing coming there. Okay. Okay, then I'll just go ahead and create the auto scaling, and I've created a tags. So all the new EC2 instances that comes up will have these tags. I'll create an auto scaling group. It's creating it. So let's just wait for it to complete. Okay, so it's updating the capacity right now. So if you go to the EC2 instances, you can see that it's actually, so it'll spin up those EC2 instances right now. We'll just wait and watch. If you go to the activity, it'll, okay, status access denied when attempting to assume role. Okay, so there is an issue here where, okay, so let's go and fix the role. Yeah, service linked role. Okay, so all right, so if you see here, so it created a new service linked role. Yeah, so it created a new service linked role called AWS service role for auto scaling. So now let's just go to IAM. Yes. Yeah, this is the role, AWS service role for auto scaling, correct? So now let's see what is the issue there. Okay, so it's not having the access to launch the EC2 instance, correct? So what I'm going to do is temporarily, I'm just going to give a okay, so you can give a trusted entities. Yes, it has a EC2 full tagging limited read. We just quickly look into the documentation. Are we missing something? An IAM role that grants your application access to AWS that it needs. Okay. Okay. Yeah, there's some permission issue, so I'm just trying to sort it out. See, IAM role for applications that run on EC2 instances. Okay. I think I have to choose that IAM role. I think I missed that step. Okay, so got it. Just go to here, select this. Okay, I'll just go ahead and delete this. We'll come back from scratch and recreate this. Delete, delete, just deleting it. Come back to launch configurations. I'm just going to delete launch configuration, delete. Okay, it's deleted. Okay, this is the deleting state. Yeah, let it delete. So let's come back. Let's just follow this tutorial end to end. Let's do it. Okay, we just created a launch configuration. You can also create a launch template. Okay, launch template can be used in multiple different places. Okay. Okay, let's first create a launch template. You have launch template here, right? On the navigation pane, choose launch templates, create a launch template. I'm just creating a new launch template. Let me just create it. Come back, give a name to it. Just give a name. My ASG launch template. Just give the same name here. Let me add a tag, name, my launch template. Okay, if you already have, you can also clone your existing source template and you can create it out of that. Um, so I want to use my web server AMI. Yeah, web server AMI. I'll just use my web server AMI. Instance type is t2.micro. That's the instance type that I want to. Key pair login. RPL mobile app is the key pair. VPC. I'll select my security group. I'll select my web server security group. I want it to run in VPC. Yeah, this is a VPC. Yeah, this is the storage volume. This is the resource tags, network interfaces. They're all standard. I'm not going to change any of these. Just leave it like this. And just create a launch template. Launch template is very similar to launch configuration, but here you can use these templates in multiple different places. Okay, that's the idea of launch template. Okay, we've just created a launch template. If you want, you can create a launch configuration as well, but either of it is needed in the autoscaling group. Okay, so then let's go to autoscaling group. Just go to the autoscaling group, create an autoscaling group. Autoscaling group is my autoscaling group launch template. I'll use my ASG launch template version 1. You can maintain multiple versions. All of this is present here. See, you don't have to configure that in the next settings. All of that is present here. Click on next. Instance purchase options, just leave it like this, default with this. Then go to VPC, select your VPC, which subnet you want to create. Want it to be created in subnet 2. Let me just create it in subnet 2. Network, yeah, choose the VPC. Okay, just going to say next. Yeah. On the configure advanced options under load balancing, choose enable load balancing. Yes, I've enabled load balancing. I'll use application load balancer. What is the target group? This is the target group that I have created earlier. I'll use that. Then come here. Then select use ELB health checks. For health checks under ELB, choose ELB. Yeah, ELB. Let me choose ELB. I'll enable CloudWatch metrics. Next. Hey, am I audible?
Yes, sir. You're
Okay. I just
very
saw
audible.
that it is saying waiting for the host to start this meeting. So I was just wondering if I got kicked out. Okay. All right. Okay, let's come back and let's create a target tracking policy of average CPU utilization. I'll just make it 40% here. And instead of 50%, just say next. Just add a notification. I already have the SNS topic, this one. I'll just use that. Just say next. Tags is name ASG. Next. Okay, this is like a review. Let's just review it. Okay, let me just go to the launch template. So what we need to do is there's something called IAM profile. I'll explain this IAM profile shortly. I can show you another small lab, using IAM profile. But right now I'm just going to create a new IAM profile. Use EC2 next permissions. It's going to fail. Let it fail. But we're just going to do scaling. Just need to come here. Yeah. So if you see, it created a new auto scaling group template. EC2 instance is running right now. Okay. If you see it got an IP address of 10.02.42. We'll log in and check whether the its load is coming or not. I'm just going to go to autoscaling group. Going to make some few modifications. Don't worry. I mean, I'm going to give you detailed steps for all of this so that you can just do a just going to make this desired capacity is 1 or desired capacity. I'll just make it 1. Minimum is 1. Maximum, I'm just going to make it 4. Okay, so now it's updated. If I actually make the desired capacity to 2, it'll add. But before that, let me just come back. I'll just show you the EC2 instance which is launched. Yeah, I'm just going to come here. Uh, it launched a new EC2 instance. If you saw, it launched a new EC2 instance. I never had this instance, right? My ESG instance was never there, so it launched it. Now I'm going to grab this IP address, come back here, and say curl http:// yeah, see, it's serving the HTML page. Hello RPL champ served from web server 1. Okay, so now let's play around with this. I'm going to, right now there's only one EC2 instance which is launched. I'm going to increase that capacity. Okay, let me make the desired capacity to 2. Okay, and then you will see that the activity, you will see that it'll and we'll also get the okay, I have to verify that email ID. So let me verify that email ID in the SNS so that you see the notifications also coming in. Yeah, topics. Go to my AS notifications, pending confirmation. Okay, I'm UCX.dropjar. Oh, okay. Gosh, it got changed. Okay, I'll just take this. That got changed. Sorry, I'll just add a new subscription. Let's go to email. I'll just add this email ID. Create subscription. Yeah, so it's done. So I'm just going to delete this guy. Okay, this would have got an email here. Yeah, got an email here. Yeah, it is confirmed. Let me go back. I mean, you don't have to use your email ID and spam it. Okay, that's the idea that I'm trying to achieve out here. Yeah, so this is confirmed. You'll actually see notifications coming to this mailbox. Let's wait. Okay, so I'm going to go back to EC2, refresh this. Yeah, see if you see here, increasing the capacity from 1 to 2. Okay, user requested constraints to min 1, max 4, desired 2. It increases to 2. I'm just going to go to EC2 instances. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and state running. See here, it added one more EC2 instance called my ASG. Another one. This has 10.02 17. So if you can also filter by like my ASG. My ASG which is running, you will see. Okay, so now if I just go to my EC2 instance, curl http:// right click. Yeah, see that'll also serve the same. Your 2.42 is also serving the same. This is also serving the same thing. Okay, so now let's go back to the load balancer. I'm going to go to load balancers. Right now I don't have a load balancer, but I have a target group. And I can see if my EC2 instances got registered to the target group or not. Yeah, see if you see the EC2 instances, two EC2 instances got automatically registered to the target group. So now I can go create a load balancer, application load balancer, and use that target group. My auto scaling LB HTTP. Yeah, I'll just use these two subnets. Next, security settings, configure security groups. I'm just gonna use my web server security group. I'll not use the web server security. I'll just create a new one. My ALBSG. SG. Yeah, I want to allow only port 80 for the world. That is fine. Next. Routing. I'll use the existing target group, which is this my autoscaling target group. And say register targets. So these are the two targets that are there. Review, create. Yeah, so this is getting provision, and target groups already have got the targets in it. It will now, the moment it gets attached to a load balancer, it will start registering the targets actually. Okay, till then it will not register the targets because it's not in use, right? It will not register. So once you put it to use, then it starts registering the targets. It's in the initial stage. So let's just wait for it to get healthy. It'll just turn healthy in a while. Let's just wait for it to turn healthy. Then we can browse the website. In the meantime, let me open CloudWatch. Yeah, this is my CloudWatch Autoscaling. There's something that's insufficient. What is insufficient? There's some CPU utilization. That's okay. That's fine. Metrics. If you go to autoscaling, you will get the autoscaling. This is all your autoscaling metrics that it comes. Okay. So let's see if the target group got healthy. Yeah, it turned healthy. Okay. So now your load balancer is also working fine. So you can just grab the load balancer's DNS and come here and browse. Okay. So let's see what is the security group. Security group is this. Inbound rules HTTP 80 is coming from the world. Okay, that's fine. So let me also review the other load by other one. Web server security group. This is the one that I'm using. HTTP 80 is 0000. Just going to do a bit of a troubleshooting because we had the same issue yesterday. I couldn't get a chance to dive deep into this. Just going to delete this. Let me just remove this. Okay, this is good. Public route table goes to IGW. Okay, which is fine. Just come to knuckles. Something wrong with my knuckle. Yeah, it's allowing all traffic. Outbound is allowing all traffic. Subnet associations. These are the two subnet associations. Okay, perfect. There's no problem with this. HTTP port 80, just forwarding it to this. We already did rules. Default action is it will forward it to this. Perfect. Sounds good. Then comes the security group. Security group is good. My ALBSG, which is this. Okay, that's fine. It looks good. There's no problem. Okay, it's come up. It took a while. I don't know why. It took a while, but it came up. Okay, so if you see, you have your hello RPL champs being served by my load balancer. I mean, it's coming up, right? So now it is actually load balancing. If I go back to my load balancer. Yeah, this is my load balancer. I think this was being provisioned. That's why we were checking it out even before it became active. Okay, so now it became active, right? And you have your low target groups. These are the target groups. These are two targets. Okay, so now if you see, okay, it's draining, and if you go back to EC2 console, if you go back to the EC2 console, what it's going to do is my minimum is 1, right? Desired is 2, right? And my maximum is 4, correct? So now if I go back to this, it's actually doing a deregistration of the target. Once the deregistration is done, the autoscaling group is going to deprovision one of the instances because the CPU utilization is like less than 50%, correct? Or is less than 50%. So that's the condition that we have given there, correct? Let me go back to my autoscaling group. If you click on the autoscaling group, if you go to the activity, yeah, see if you see here, it gave a message saying a monitor alarm target tracking alarm low. It basically got an alarm low because the CPU utilization of those is definitely less than 50%. I'm not putting any traffic on that, right? Triggered a policy changing the desired capacity from 2 to 1 because the minimum is 1, correct? So it is actually shrinking the capacity from 2 to 1. uh, was selected for termination. So it is just waiting for that to be terminated. So let's wait. It is first going to drain all the capacity. It's going to drain the load balancer. So what the draining does is usually whatever active requests that are there that are going to the load that are going to the target, it first completes all that active requests. That is called the draining process. So once the active requests are done, no new requests are sent to the targets. That is called the draining process. So once it drains, and once the draining completes, then what it does is it goes and deprovisions the one of the instances. Let's just wait because the cool off period is like 300 seconds, right? So it will take a while. It's not advisable to have a very low cool off period. So where it's like it will keep fluctuating between the ranges of minimum desired capacity and maximum capacity. So let's just wait for this to complete. After this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some load into my application, right? I'm going to spike up the CPU utilization, and then we're going to see how it behaves. In the meantime, let it drain. Okay, A198 is the one which is active, correct? A198, which is 217. So I'm going to log into the 217 box. SSH -I RPL mobile app key dot. 217. Okay, I'm just going to log into that. Let me log into that. Okay, I've logged into this box. Now I'm going to let it complete. Let it complete deprovisioning. I'm going to actually run that. Okay, it's deleted actually. If you see, it's deleted. And if you see, it drained completely, and then it deleted that. And if I go and refresh my auto scaling group, it says terminating is in progress. It has already terminated the EC2 instance. If I go to my email ID, I will actually get that notifications received in the email. Okay, wait, it'll just take a while to receive those emails. I hope I have configured it properly. Okay, so now if you see what is my auto scaling desired capacity is 1, minimum capacity is 1, maximum capacity is 4. So what it did was it did not find my CPU utilization. If you see what is the uh, target tracking policy that I have, the target tracking policy that I have is CPU utilization at as required to maintain a average CPU utilization at 40. Add or remove capacity units as required and 300 seconds to warm up before including in metric. Okay, I can just go ahead and just edit this. If I want, I can change this to something else also, right? If I want, okay, I can do that. And I can add more policies, right? I can add more policies, and also I can do a scheduled actions, right? I can create a scheduled action which says that run that scheduled action for, I mean, recurrence every now I mean, as per the schedule that you give, as per the frequency that you give, right? For now, let's not go into that. Let's come back here. So now my desired capacity is 1, minimum capacity is 1, maximum capacity is 4. And target group has got only one instance, and EC2 instance is only one is running, and I have logged into that, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bump up the CPU utilization. Okay. So let me bump up the CPU utilization of my EC2 instance. How do I do that? I'll just use that script that I have, which we did last time. I think CloudWatch was 19th, not 20th. Yeah, I'm just going to run this. Okay, let me just run this. So you will see that, I mean, the load is increasing. Okay, CPU utilization is, I'm just artificially increasing the CPU utilization. Okay, that's what I'm doing. I mean, I'm not simulating an actual load, but I'm just simply simulating the CPU utilization. So if you see CPU utilization is 80%. So the moment it sees it's 80%, what it's going to do is let's come back. Let's go to the auto scaling group. Okay, we'll just wait for some time. It's going to add a new instance. I can either do it this way, or I can also do it using a curl script of invoking that URL, the load balancer's URL, and add load to my. You can use JMeter, right? How many of you know what JMeter is? Have you used JMeter? Do you know what a JMeter is? Raise your hands. Okay, you don't know what a JMeter is? Okay, no problem. See, JMeter is a open source tool with which you can run uh, load testing. Apache JMeter is a Java application to test your application, to load test your application. Okay, test the performance and load of your web application, right? Okay, so anyways, let's wait. So if you see, I've bumped up the CPU utilization. So now let's just wait for it to kind of uh, sense that, you know, that particular CPU, that particular EC2 instance, CPU utilization is going high because the cool off period is 300 seconds, right? So it'll just wait for 300 seconds and then it'll trigger an event in the activity history, which says that in the CloudWatch, you will see that there's something which is an alarm stage. If you see, the CPU utilization is 100% continuously. So let's just wait for 300 seconds so that CloudWatch captures that the CPU utilization of that EC2 instance has gone up, right? And your application is actually suffering. And see, if you see here, CPU utilization greater than or 70% for one data points within 1 minute. Okay, let's just wait and watch. You should see that in a while an event should get triggered. Yeah, so it has increased if you see. So let's just wait for some more time. Okay, there's only one. Okay, I've just added the other EC2 instance also. So let me just wait. Just we just need to wait for some time, and you'll see that, you know, it'll actually add a new EC2 instance. Yeah, okay, subscription is confirmed. If you see, you got a notification, autoscaling termination for group. What does it say? It said yeah, triggered target policy, target tracking policy, change the desired capacity from 2 to 1. Okay, so you will get you'll get those notifications in near real time. See, we didn't enable uh, detailed monitoring, right? We just enable normal monitoring, so that's why it'll take some time. Yeah, but if you see it has peaked to 99%. Okay, your auto scaling group also should go now. Yeah, see, your auto scaling group also peaked to 99%, right? So now you will start seeing some activity happening. Wait for the activity to come in. It'll immediately kick in the auto scaling. Yeah, see, see, uh, it immediately triggered and it's launching a new EC2 instance. In fact, it's launching two new EC2 instances, right? Because it found that the CPU utilization shot up to 99%, pretty much 100%, right? If you see, it's in 100% now, right? So in order to balance this workload, it has launched two new EC2 instances. And if I go to my EC2 instances and if I refresh it, I will see, yeah, two new EC2 instances are being launched. See, or launched. And if I go to my target group, you will see that it is initializing, it's registering it to the target group, and it became healthy also. So now, if I go and browse my website, right? Yeah, so it's able to browse the website properly without any issues. Okay, so now, okay, it's able to browse the website without any issues. I mean, I should have just showed you earlier. To browse, it would have got stuck because that CPU utilization was 99%, right? It would have actually got stuck. It would have, I forgot to show you that. But right now, if you see, it is sending it to other nodes. It's not sending it to the node which is having 100% CPU utilization. It is sending it to the other two nodes. Okay, I mean, of course, everything is having web server 1 out there, but yeah, I mean, it's actually sending it to the other two nodes. Okay, you can do that. You can also see that. Okay, so but you can see that auto scaling is actually happening in action, right? You see that two new targets are added and two new instances are added to this. Yeah, it's actually waiting for instance warm up. Okay, let it warm up, and once it warms up, you'll see all activities that are happening with respect to auto scaling in this history, right? And what you can do is you can just go to CloudWatch and you can just refresh the CloudWatch. Probably, ideally, if I injected normal load to my application, I should see that this will reduce. But what I've done is I'm just cheating the system. I'm just cheating the system by adding more load to that EC2 instance. Okay, artificially, right? I mean, so in that case, that EC2 instance will never come down, right? It'll always have like 99%, but my overall auto scaling groups CPU utilization should go down. If you see, because I've added two new instances to my auto scaling group, to my cluster, so that should go down significantly. Okay, so that should go down. No, it'll go down in a while because I've enabled auto scaling and it should go down significantly. Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll just go back to this. Right, I'll just quit this. Okay, so these are all the process IDs, right? 3357, 58, 59, 60. I'm just going to kill all of that. Kill -9, 3357, 3358, 33593360. Yeah, so I've just killed all of those. So now it's like back to 0% CPU utilization. Okay. So now let's just leave it like this. You will see that the CPU utilization has gone down. Okay. And CPU utilization of your cluster was 99%. Now it will go down. After it goes down, what your auto scaling group is going to do is it is going to bring your capacity back to 1. We are going to see that. You'll have to wait for another 5 more minutes for that to happen. Okay, let this warm up, let this finish, and then you will see that this auto scaling group right now it is there are 3 instances running. It is going to come down to 1. Something is wrong with my laptop. It's quite slow. What is causing that? Okay, so let's just wait for another 5 more minutes. And yeah, see again. See, it actually increased it to 4. The reason is it was still running, correct? The 100% CPU utilization of that was still running. So it just made it to 4. It added one more EC2 instance. Then it would have made the cluster to maximum. Okay. But now if you see, it will bring down everything, right? So that's where the cool off period is important. So if you just leave it like this for another 5 more minutes, it's going to bring the entire cluster back to its original state of minimum state of 1. It will happen in about another 5 more minutes. I mean, we are not giving it time, right? We're not giving it time to respond, right? So we are just continuously bombarding it with actions, and we're just making it 100%. I just reduced it to 0% now. So the CloudWatch metrics would respond to that because in about 5 minutes time, you see it's 0% only. Nothing, no activity is happening, correct, on my original instance. So I'll just exit this. If I browse my website, I should be able to browse it because it'll go from one of those instances, correct? In fact, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and add that instance metadata to that. Instead of saying web server 1, it'll bring it from the EC2 instance ID. So let me just uh, show EC2 instance ID, instance metadata in HTML. There's probably a JavaScript for that actually. Okay, I'll give you that code tomorrow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, instead of showing one here, I'll show you. I'll create a small JavaScript which will retrieve the EC2 instance ID from the instance metadata. If all of you remember, we looked at the instance metadata, how to retrieve the instance metadata from within an EC2 instance, correct? We created a token which was valid for 24 hours, and then we ran the API to get the instance metadata from the EC2 instance, correct? So that's possible. let's do that later. I'll give you that code tomorrow. You can use it in your lab for Thursday and Friday. But if you see, if I keep hitting the ALB, it'll take the request to all the four EC2 instances. Okay, it made it from 1 to 3 and 3 to 4. So let's just wait for it to reduce it to 1. Okay, it'll just reduce the entire thing to 1. Okay, in the meantime, let it come back. In the meantime, I'm just going to give you assignment for today. I know it's not a straightforward thing, right? I mean, but just make an attempt. This is a public developer guide. Okay, so developer guide, and then we have in fact, we're going to do a very detailed project on Thursday and Friday using the WordPress use on the auto scaling, right? So what we can do is for today, you don't have to basically perform all these steps, create an AMI and all of that. I mean, those who can do it, please do it. Okay, using the AMI that you had created earlier. Have you all created an AMI for the Hello RPL Champs website earlier? Do any of you have that? Raise your hands. Or you cleaned up the AMI?
We have cleaned up everything.
You have
Cleaned
cleaned
up,
up
sir.
everything, right? Okay. Then don't worry, that's okay. You can just do it with a normal EC2 instance itself, or you can practice the steps in the autoscaling group and launch template. You can do that. Maybe when we actually do on Thursday and Friday, right? We are going to do uh, a proper lab exercise for as per our plan. We are going to do. In fact, we can start from tomorrow itself. Okay, the next 3 days we are going to actually do some stuff with auto scaling and deploying a highly available architecture for WordPress site using auto scaling. So what you can do is today's session is more like a introduction to auto scaling, right? So look at it that way. And what we can do is we can actually take the WordPress website itself, right? And we'll build a WordPress AMI, right? And we will start from tomorrow onwards. I mean, I'm going to change this to tomorrow as well, right? I'll just make a change here. So next 3 days, we are going to actually focus on a project where I'll give you step by step. Tomorrow, you will do one portion of the project. On Thursday, you will do another portion of the project. On Friday, you will complete the project. Okay. And all of us can, I mean, we can just catch up with each other, right? On the progress of the project. Okay. And it's all going to be within the free tier limits. So don't worry about that. I mean, as long as you clean it up and as long as you ensure that you don't exceed your limits. Okay, let's do it. And WordPress, we have already done WordPress, right? So I'm going to give you the detailed steps for doing that in tomorrow's. We'll actually start with the project in the morning tomorrow. I'm going to give you a project documentation, right? And what you will achieve in the next 3 days, right? I'm going to give you detailed steps for that. And what I'm going to do is tomorrow 9 o'clock when we meet 9 to 10, I'm going to do the tomorrow's portion of the project and show to all of you. And from 10 o'clock onwards, you can go into your breakout rooms and do tomorrow's portion of the project and keep it ready, complete it, and come back on day after tomorrow. Again, 9 o'clock, we're going to start. On Thursday's portion of the project is something that I'm going to show you 9 to 10. And 10 o'clock, you can go into your breakout rooms and do Thursday's portion of the project. And finally, on Friday's project, 9 to 10, I'm going to show you the closure of the project. And 10 o'clock, you can go into your breakout rooms and close your project. And you will have, I'm going to give you step by step what you're going to achieve only tomorrow. I'm not going to give you the whole thing, right? So that you achieve only that day's project in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, let's do it that way. But yeah, I mean, um, autoscaling